Billy Jack Haynes wrote something on Facebook. He called out Steve Austin and challenged him to a fight. Wow. Now, would you like for me to read what Billy Jack Haynes had to say?
Yes, I'd like to read that. And dare I say, in his prime, Billy Jack would have beat Austin's ass. No, Billy Jack was a tough man. I'm not saying you're not a tough man now, but back in the day, people were terrified of you.
This may take me 5 minutes to read, but it's interesting. All right. I think every single person listening would want to hear this. All right. Mm-hmm. Here's what Billy Jack Haynes says, and this is word for word. I'm not changing.
Is this from Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said,
how recent is this, by the way?
Over the weekend.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Here we go. Billy Jack Haynes says, and I quote, "I welcome the new Facebook members. I had to block 32 ignorant WWE backers that simply feel Vince can do no wrong. Vince McMahon wants to get rid of the old school that made him a billionaire. If Vince McMahon could close his eyes and make a wish, the entire 1980s and 1990s would be gone. Hulk Hogan is gone and removed forever, not a trace. Hulk was a racist, but for life? Look in the mirror, Vince McMahon. There is the real racist. We have 5 African Americans on our class action lawsuit that will testify to this. But I'm so damn pissed on this April 14th, 2015 day. It is very hard at the age of 62 to maintain my composure. Here are the facts with the death of legend wrestler Roddy Piper. Rod, on a podcast, had a Steve Austin impersonator. He was great. Steve Austin went crazy and told Vince McMahon to fire Roddy Piper or Steve Austin would quit. So Vince McMahon, after 30 years, 3 decades, fires Roddy Piper. Vince McMahon knew Roddy Piper had not been well as of late. This information hits the internet, so it's true. Roddy Piper dies of an apparent heart attack 3 days after he was fired. So Vince McMahon goes into cover-up and lie mode. So Vince McMahon, who clearly knows Steve Austin, loves beating up on women. I should know he married my first ex-wife, Jeannie Clark.
That is true. That is true. Billy Jack has a tie to Steve Austin. They were married to the same woman. The first, yes, that is true.
And by the way,
this is interesting. I'm actually finding this interesting. Yeah.
By the way, you'll find this even more interesting. I mentioned this last week after your phone died. Steve Austin blocked us on Twitter.
Did he?
Yeah. And the only possible reason I could think of, because I've never tweeted him, I don't mention him in tweets, I never bashed him on Twitter. The only thing I could think of is that I'm still personal friends with his ex-girlfriend, Tess Broussard.
That's probably it.
And you remember the interview I did with her about 10 years ago when she accused him of some wild shit. And you know,
yeah, I do remember. Wow, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what? Not for nothing, Steve Austin. If this ever came back to you, you know, listen. Let me say this, okay? I've been friends with her for 10 years, longer than you. Okay, I would never date her. She's not my type. You know, she's a little interesting character. But I'm sorry, when a woman tells me some outrageous accusations, you know, as a human being and as a man, I'm thinking if another man really did this to a woman, I would be like, wow, you're a piece of shit pussy. So I don't, I appreciate Steve Austin's wrestling career, and there's 2 sides to every story. Do I think Steve Austin did all the accusations that she made? No, there's no proof to it. It's never been, so I don't know what's...
Like disgruntled boyfriends, disgruntled girlfriends.
Yeah, I don't know what's true and what's not. But as a man...
I wouldn't even dare say that.
But as a man, if Steve Austin was friends with a woman, and a woman told Steve Austin, this guy did this, and this, if you didn't turn around and say, wow, what a piece of shit, what does that say about you? So to turn around
True,
and...
but we also don't know we don't know the credibility of either... I mean...
Right, but I'm just saying, if that's the reason...
And with all recordings and videos, there's a lot of proof out there for other things. When there's no tangible evidence ever, that's always a red flag to me for any accusation. Like what China just did and retracted, where X-Pac put himself out there and came on and said, enough of this bullshit already. We stop fucking lying.
Yeah.
And X-Pac was, 99% of approval of what he did, including women who were like, that's the type of woman who makes it hard for other women when there's a reality in those
I got news for you.
Cases.
If Billy Jack Haynes hears this, I will bet you the farm that he is going to want to hear that interview with Tess Broussard. because I'm not going to rehash the accusations, but some of them were out there. Some of them were wild, and even accusations that not even Billy Jack Haynes has made. But again,
well, we didn't. Let's get back because we're confusing everybody.
So anyway,
finish what Billy Jack said, so this way you can read half the email.
Okay,
well, he'll read half the post. I mean, talk about, you left off with him saying he was married to the same woman as Austin.
And before I say the rest, to Violence is Golden in the chat room. Kind of funny you have that name and you're criticizing me. I never said that I believed everything that she said. All I'm saying is as a man, if a woman tells me, if my neighbor says to me, this guy did this, and this to me, this guy also did this on a computer, and did this overseas, I would be like, wow, that's pretty fucked up. What a piece of shit.
Well, not even as a man, as a human being.
Yeah, as a human being. So, I mean, Steve, what do you want me to say to her? Yeah, but he throws a great fucking stunner. but he fucking
fans also have to stop doing that with the same Chris Benoit.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, but he's
missing when people do heinous acts that it's okay because they're a good wrestler. Stop acting. But you're the problem with the perception of wrestling fans that they think you're a bunch of morons.
But
really.
Tess,
you know, Chris Benoit only killed 2 people. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean,
unbelievable,
OJ
man.
Killed 2 people.
Yeah, but
stupid idiots.
Yeah, but Tess, that's why Rikishi ran him over. Anyway,
he did it for the people.
He did it for the people.
There's a lot of mental illness out there. I mean, you know,
I know, man.
We can't be a physician for everybody.
All right. Well, anyway, here's what here's the rest of Billy Jack Haynes stuff. Vince McMahon, who clearly knows Steve Austin loves beating up on women. I should know he married my first wife, ex-wife Jean Clark. Then he married many times and beat then-wife Deborah McMichael. Writes Steve Austin, which is documented. Well, I have an idea, Steve, and here it is. Try me, asshole. UFC, 1-minute rounds, 1-minute rest to a knockout finish. Stand up, fist only. They're your favorite weapons against women anyway, right? You women-beating piece of shit. $1 million winner take all. We put up both $1 million each, with one of the $1 million going to a battered woman's shelter. I'm 62. Steve is 51. My knees are gone. A UFC fist fight to a finish. Simple. Not so fast, Vince McMahon. You allowed this woman beater to be in your company for 20 years. He is also a WWE Hall of Famer. How the hell is this? Roddy, to me, clearly died over the pure stress of being fired by you, Vince McMahon, and over a woman beater that you know full well is. Well, Roddy has paid the ultimate price for this pure bullshit. I take Roddy's place because one thing is for sure, if you knew Roddy like I did for 33 years, he would have come after you stone cold and beat your damn ass. Then came after you, Vince McMahon, and went out in his style, his own way. But now after Roddy Piper dies, 3 days after Crybaby goes egomaniac to you, Vince McMahon, you try to cover it up with a lie. How corrupt are you? This is the reason the WWE needs a union now. Fired for nothing after 30 years, Vince. He kept you from prison in the Sahorian trial. Vince McMahon, once again, what goes around comes around. The mega $1 million class action lawsuit plays stronger than ever every day. I clearly blame you, Steve Austin, and Vince McMahon for the death of Roddy Piper, and without question, if Roddy was here today, he would tell me, Billy Jack, kick both their asses. Consider it done, Hot Rod. Where do you two punks stand fight, a man or a woman? You'll have not one choice once the mainstream media and propaganda and women's liberations grab the headlines. This is my answer, Roddy. I love you. I miss you. Your true friend of 33 years, Billy Jack Haynes. P.S. You would have done the same for me, period. Roddy, we always had to be silent. We had to stay apart, yet we put on the false front but loved each other with all our heart. I'm now the last man standing. We both silently knew as the last of the WWF old school. It did not matter which one of us died first, for shortly after the other would have to die too. The 2000 Portland Town Hall meeting, we both almost gave in, but drug addictions and our word won the war again. In 2003, when Kurt Hennig died of an overdose of cocaine, we had to silently meet and cry our eyes out for Kurt, and we had to accept this pain. We were both becoming broken spirits as the axe was above our families' heads. We hugged our brothers, often did. Roddy, we both knew it was just a matter of time. Then in 2007, when the Benoits were murdered, that's when we should have exposed the tyrant. That is the bottom line. Then in 2009, our beloved Buddy Rose died. It was years of cocaine that finally killed him. We both blew up inside. I told you I had enough. I did my shoot interview, but without you, it was too tough. We were both hiding within our addiction, so many thought I was nuts. Then you sat with me at the park in the pouring rain. You said you loved my guts. In 2012, I tried suicide at the cemetery, and if I died, you'd be dead too. We laughed, got high on a lot of pain pills. It seemed like the best thing to do. We both called Jim Hellwig's death in 2014, died for a gimmick called Warrior, sucked in for the fake WWE Hall of Fame. Roddy Piper, it was God that gave us the NFL's best attorney. I give you my word to God Almighty, I never said you, and I would split what we got. Man, Rod, I give you such heart to stay inside the WWE to death, but to keep it natural for us as distant as it was always best. So now you come up dead with a precious family who mourns you, and a family of 31 years, the WWE, many came to your funeral who loved you, many for just the front, but the two son of a bitches that stayed home and gave you zero respect was Steve Austin and Vince McMahon. I love you, Roddy. This egomaniac has to be stopped. Bring it on, Vince McMahon, dead or alive for me. You're going broke, then to jail for life. Sincerely, Billy Jack Haynes.
Wow, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I honestly...
Jesus Christ, A, that was long. B, there was some interesting things said in there, obviously.
Yep.
You know, from past things with Billy Jack, you kind of have to look at the whole spectrum of things. But there was some truth to what he said. I mean, once again, this is his opinion. He was actually in the wrestling business and knows these guys. We don't. So we can all go, oh, that's not true. This is true. You know, you kind of it was pretty, beyond interesting what was written there. I mean, the guy, and clearly Roddy Piper was his friend. And when you're in mourning, you'll just, ramble on and say a lot of things. I mean, listen, Vince, who knows? I just don't know. I do know that a lot of people are angry at Steve Austin. You knew that, Don Tony. About the Piper thing. And listen, there's no medical evidence. We don't know what Piper's condition was. We were all shocked that he died. Let's be honest. I don't recall on any podcast or show anybody saying Roddy wasn't doing well. Do you recall that? He was doing radio shows up until a couple weeks ago.
Well, you want to know something?
Him being in ill health. Did you?
Well, when he did that interview for that TV show right after Hogan was fired by WWE,
Rich Eisen said there was something wrong with him.
Yeah, he seemed. It was a very odd interview, and some people thought he might have been under the influence. I didn't say anything because I honestly didn't know what to take of it. So, you really don't know. But I mean, a heart attack is a heart attack.
Well, I think Piper was acting strange on the Wrestler's House, the Legend's House. He was acting bizarre.
No, I don't think so either.
Walking out into the night.
I didn't. I didn't get any vibe of him being strange on the Legend's House.
Tony, when he walked out and had the anxiety attack.
I thought that was scripted. I thought that was completely scripted. What you talking about when you heard the werewolves?
There's a guy who doesn't sleep.
You're talking about when they heard the coyotes going, oh.
No, when he
when he was wandering. I thought that was all scripted. I thought that was just.
I don't know about that. I think
it was the first episode.
A tortured soul to me.
It was the first episode. They wanted to try to make it really controversial.
I mean, we listen. We don't know. Listen, one thing we do know about Roddy Piper: he's married to the same woman for almost 40 years.
God bless him.
Woman, he's been with her for years. I mean, that's today. That's like, wow. In relationship wise, I mean, he's talk about wrestlers. Every goddamn wrestler's divorced or married 4 or 5 times over.
Yeah, that's
Piper had a stable family life. His son Colton's a good guy, who's competing now. His kids, his daughters are all good kids. So Piper did a great job as a family man.
Yeah,
but he was kind of a tortured soul type of guy. I mean, he definitely was. I think maybe he just had some demons. But the heart attack, listen, but the one thing, I don't think Billy Jack is off the mark about, listen, nobody killed anybody. People die in their 60s, they have heart attacks. A friend died the other day in his 30s, actually, of a heart attack. Yeah. I think to blame somebody, that's a little bit much, but was there stress because Piper was released from his Legends contract or whatever? I don't doubt that could contribute. I'm sure even a physician would say that. Now, that you can't call somebody a murderer, but listen, at 35, you can go in the ER with a fucking heart attack from losing your job, or your girlfriend of 15 years walks out and you walk in the house, your clothes and your property are gone, and you're clutching your chest. These things happen to everybody, not just people who are not quote-unquote in shape. This happens to people in shape. This happens to anybody. You get a heart ischemia, you get some kind of rheumatic problem, you go to sleep, you never wake up. This shit happens. Was Piper maybe stressed? Piper was not a very rich man from wrestling. He had money, but he didn't have no Hogan money. He didn't have no fucking Triple H money. And maybe that was fucked up, and he felt let down by the company, betrayed. We don't know what Piper's state was. I do know when TMZ interviewed him a few days before he died on the street about Hogan, Piper didn't look well. Everyone go check out that interview. It's TMZ, Piper's last interview about Hogan. He didn't look very good. And when he was on the Rich Eisen show, I watched it again today, and then I watched Rich Eisen talk about a week later after Piper died, and Rich actually seemed shaken up by it. He was as you know, Don Tony, Rich Eisen's a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And loved Roddy Piper, and said there was something wrong. I'm not going to go on this thing where I knew, because he was in shock. He just thought Roddy was not well. There was just something not right there. It was a strange thing, and he couldn't have been nicer, but there was something you could tell off about him. And was it health related? Was it something on his mind? I think like those Legends contracts are very important to some of these guys now. I think that they bank on it, they get a check from it, they get money from it, and it's important. I think when you feel iced out and isolated from your brethren of wrestlers, and maybe he felt, but as Billy Jack said, that they took Austin's side. Piper has done as much for that company as anybody else, and I think there's some angry people right now at Austin, and Austin, went on, and a matter of fact, I remember hearing Austin's reply to it. He said, "I will take no further questions about it." Did you hear Austin's reply?
Yeah.
I will not answer this again. I will not address this again, and it's a done deal. Rest in peace, Roddy Piper. I'm like, I don't know if you can, all right. According to Steve Austin, it's over and done with, and there will be no more questions about it. It's very political, but I just found that funny, him saying that he will not speak on it anymore, that he did not have anything to do with Piper's firing and blah, 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 and that's just rumor mills. I think there's a lot of people who feel that, but let's not blame somebody for someone having a heart attack. That's not fair. That's a little unfair.
My take on the Billy Jack Haynes stuff, he's grieving, obviously. It's his close friend.
The guy lost his friend. I think Billy Jack lost a lot of friends, and it's very upsetting. I think it questions your own mortality too. Obviously,
I just think that if he is part of a class action lawsuit, that is, right. Let's be honest, it has a lot of hurdles. It's going to be a difficult case to win. If I was the lawyer doing this class action lawsuit, I would tell one of my clients, Billy Jack Haynes, please do not threat physical violence on the person we're trying to sue.
That's a big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I never hung out with these guys. Everything Billy Jack Haynes could be saying is true. Everything could be bullshit. I'm not going to judge him one way or the other.
We have no idea.
The only two things I have to say is, number one, he's obviously hurting over the death of his friend. And number two, if I was his lawyer, I would tell him, tone it down a couple of notches.
Yeah, don't say anything.
No.
Just be quiet.
And if Roddy Piper's family, his sons, hear this, they should be very proud of their father, because when you listen to shoot interviews and you hear wrestlers telling road stories, old school stuff, the one thing you never hear about Roddy Piper was woman, like going with like different women. Drinking, yes. With the boys, yes. You never.
He's very faithful to his wife. Yeah.
Very faithful. Very family.
Much a family man. That's very admirable in that day and today's day and age.
Yeah,
very admirable part of Roddy Piper's. Like I said, he was with Kitty for a long time, and he has a really solid family.
Yeah,
and raised some great kids. I mean, so that means a lot. It means a lot in any part of society.
Sure.
Let alone wrestling society.
Yeah.